What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops crew, and it is Nuff of the Week time. And let's not beat around the bush here. You can already see it in the title of the video. You've seen the thumbnail. It's going to Eric Hipwood this week, who, from my mind, has done something worse than a lot of the things that have recently received suspensions, and some of which have received suspensions and then were wrongly, poorly butchered by the legal systems and basically got them off the hook. This is a worse act as far as I'm concerned. Now, I can't show the video because of YouTube's policies and monetization and what Seven and Fox and all those sorts of companies will do. They'll try and blacklist the video because they want to dominate the market. Get with the times, but that's a whole other thing. Maybe enough for a future time. We'll see. But this still frame here is the moment that the lizard, Blakey, was tunneled by Eric Hipwood. Now, I think for some, there's still a degree of education required as to what tunneling is. And I'm not saying that Eric Hipwood's lacking in education here. He's just clearly lacking in smarts. And to be fair, he's demonstrated on plenty of occasions over the course of the last few years that he may not necessarily be the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to on-field exploits. He just seems to lose his way from time to time and get a bit carried away and do dumb things and try and talk a big game. Might be a very intelligent individual off-field, and I'm never going to sit here and question that because it's not my place, and nor would I know. But on field, he makes some dumb blunders from time to time, and this was one of them, right up near the pointy end as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, there's acts that are worse than this. You know, deliberately punching someone, if you want to go Barry Hall versus Brent Staker, or, you know, Brayshaw and Gaff, those sorts of moments, they're worse, for sure. But as far as acts that are kind of in the realm of a footballing act, and I'm not going to go as far as say it's a footballing act, but it's pretty close to one. This is right up there with the worst and some of the most dangerous, simply because what sections of Nick Blakey are vulnerable, what portions of his body are vulnerable in a scenario like this. His back, his neck, and his head. Now, we are in a day and age where, of course, concussion is one of the big hitting topics in this competition. It's what's underpinned many of the suspensions we've seen this year. There haven't been blatant strikes for the most part. Sorry, Isaac Heaney. There's not really been big blatant strikes. There's not been any like really malicious acts displayed on a football field this year. There's been lots of footballing or footballing adjacent acts that have caught the ire of the MRO or the tribunal or both, and then have or haven't been allowed off the hook. This is one that I sincerely hope gets many weeks. The reason being that in a scenario like this, and I guess I come at this with a degree of perspective, having been tunneled before, not in the same sport. In fact, it was on a basketball court, and I hit a much harder surface than what the lizard would have hit in this particular case. But the nature of tunneling puts so many key parts of the body at risk. Now, of course, for the most part, what typically happens is a player lands directly on their back. Now, that can cause a whole range. I mean, backs are a very, very important part, of course. Whether you're a paraplegic, quadriplegic, whatever, like these, I mean, I'm not saying that what would have happened, he would have led to that particular outcome, but backs are vulnerable things. You can, pop discs, you can do all sorts of things, crack vertebrae, those sort of things. And these can be things that, dependent on the nature of the injury, dependent on what actually occurs, can be life-altering. You may not be a quadriplegic, you may not be a paraplegic, but your quality of life for the rest of your life might be severely impacted because of the contact you make with the ground and no ability to brace yourself. But if he did brace himself, there's the possibility that maybe an arm gets jammed in there. And I guess this is where I can kind of relate to my sort of scenario where I got tunneled on a basketball court. My legs came out completely from underneath me. And the instinctive thing in that scenario was to try and brace my fall as much as you possibly can. My arm got pinned under my arm got pinned under myself, and I broke the bone through my hand. Now, I was fortunate in this instance. That was the extent of the injury, but like it was a broken bone through my hand. It was not ideal. I was in a lot of pain, and it caused a lot of issues there. In this scenario, there's bodies flying everywhere. You got Nick Blakey, like again, it could have landed on his back. It could have been vertebrae. It could have been a whole bunch of other issues there. There's then the head component, which I'm going to focus less on because, again, there's so much that's said about concussion and those sort of things already. But of course, he could have landed and hit his head. He could have knocked himself out. He could have. There's a whole range of brain trauma-related injuries that could go on there. The neck, I touched on that as well. It's kind of this middle ground between the both of them. But again, very much like the back, all sorts of issues. There's all sorts of ruptures. There's all sorts of slipped discs and vertebrae. Like, all of that's very much connected. And it's such a dangerous thing. And it's something that's so easy to avoid. Now, we've had near misses in the game. We've also had some scenarios in recent weeks, and I'm trying to recall now, and maybe I'm getting a little bit of tunnel vision here, for want of a better phrase, being a Geelong supporter. But I'm pretty sure there was a scenario where people had kind of accused one of our Cats players in recent weeks of tunneling. And please, if you're a neutral, let me know what that was, because I do want to be fair and equitable, but I can't for the life of me remember what the scenario was. But I feel like it was in recent weeks. People had made the accusation there. My first response in that scenario was, well, no, I think there's a play on the ball here that didn't work out, but it was an actual play on the ball. The Eric Hipwood thing here, though, there was no such scenario. And you can see it. Like the arm is there. He's lifting the body. And we see what instant impact that has, let alone how else he might rotate, how else he might fall, and what contact brings to him in that particular case. It's just an unnecessary, foolish, dangerous act that wasn't at all required. It didn't help Eric in the marking contest. It didn't it's just mind-boggling that this sort of act can occur. And I don't want to get too hyperbolic. I'm trying not to get too carried away here, but it's an incredibly dangerous thing. I've seen mates, take similar sorts of falls. I've had that on a basketball court. Like it's an awful feeling, because you in that moment as the person falling are completely powerless. Now, I tried to put my arm out and create an injury there. If I didn't, I don't know. I don't know what sort of damage it would have done. Whether it's all the things I mentioned there, whether it's dental, whether there's so many things that can come from it, and it's just such an avoidable thing. You don't need to lean the body in like that. Accidents will happen. That is part of this game, and it's something that I do not want to see lost. I think when we talk about the tackles and we talk about the bumps and some of the things that are going on, it's a really tricky conversation at the moment, because these are footballing acts, traditional footballing acts, and they are delivered with no malice. They are delivered with no intent to hurt. They are delivered in such a way that, it's to strip the ball or to lock a player down for holding the ball, whatever it happens to be. And maybe something goes a little bit awry or some unforeseen contact occurs. And, the conversation is very nuanced and it's going to continue to go on. But what we're seeing here with Eric Hipwood is it's not a footballing act. It's like in this particular case, there are scenarios that result in tunneling where that might be the case. Where tunneling occurs, but it wasn't a deliberate thing. It just happened. A body turned and a player sailed over the top. And accidents happen. And accidents do happen. This wasn't one of them. This is, if you're trying to define tunneling and what is wrong with it and why it is unsafe, why it is dangerous, why it should be penalized, punished, this is the one. So Eric Hipwood, you're the Nuff of the Week this week. Thoroughly deserved, I might add. But please, I want to engage in a broader conversation about this one. Let me know what you think about where we're at with the tackle, where we're at with the bump, where tunneling fits within that broader spectrum. Have I gotten too carried away? Please, if you can remember what that scenario is involving a Geelong player recently, let me know what it was, because I am completely blanking on it right now. I can't for the life of me think of who was involved. All I remember was kind of pushing back and going, well, no, I think there's intent on the ball here that's not present when we compare it to an example such as this. So let me know what you think. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Patreon. We've got a growing Patreon there. There's lots of access, especially if you're a Cats fan. There's lots of great things for you to check out there that relate directly to what's going on with the men's team, with the women's team, the twos, the Chaps Chat Cats do awesome things. Ben's putting some great content together, from the news wraps to more. We've got post-game live on the YouTube channel every week, except for last week, Bite Me Guy who wanted to complain. And there's some awesome stuff that can be found from the Hoops Crew. So check it all out. Check us out on socials. You can find me at Paul James Games on socials. And until next week, thanks a lot for watching. Remain Geelong strong. Eric Hipwood, you're enough. We'll see you later.